As we all know, we finally have the price and release date for the main three contenders in the virtual reality race, and now we've had a couple of comments from various people regarding PlayStation VR, one of which is SCEA Senior Dev Support Engineer Chris Norden and Shuhei Yoshida. We're going to begin with Chris Norden's comments as he stressed the importance of frame rate for PlayStation VR, and of course, as we all know, it's not just important for PlayStation VR, but for VR in general. Frame rate has to be as high as possible to not give players motion sickness. Now, Chris made these comments at the PlayStation VR talk at GDC, and he basically highlighted the performance of frame rates for potential developers interested in creating titles for the platform. And he said, quote, "Frame rate is really important. You cannot drop below 60 frames per second ever. If you submit a game to us and it drops to 55 or 51, we're probably going to reject it. I know I'm going to get flack for this, but there's no excuse for not hitting frame rate. It's really hard. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's extremely easy. It's really difficult. 60 Hz is the minimum acceptable frame rate. Everybody drill that into your heads." And Sony is also going to be launching a VR consultation service for developers with the aim of providing feedback on what he calls technical correctness. Now that is according to Gamasutra. And when talking about this, Chris said, quotes, "We're not going to beta test your title or anything, but what we're going to provide you a kind of report of, oh, this is a possible nausea trigger. Oh, you're dropping frame rates." And to be honest, I am glad to see Sony taking such a firm stance. For VR to be successful, it is pretty important that we don't make people feel ill. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm stating the obvious, but it's really, really key. If you feel uncomfortable or nauseous, or even that you're actually going to throw up while you're playing a virtual reality game, it's probably going to put you off virtual reality for quite some time. Obviously, a little sort of twist in your tummy as you kind of get used to things, that's probably going to happen at the start. I know when I first used the Oculus Dev Kit 2, and of course that was the Dev Kit, not the finished product, I did kind of get a couple of moments of vertigo, but A, it was not a finished device, and B, I'd never worn a virtual reality headset ever before at that point. It's going to take some getting used to, that's fine, but making you feel sick constantly, it's going to really harm VR. Of course, whether or not VR is successful is based on numerous factors, but one of those is, does it make you feel sick? And the answer has to be no. So, let's move on to the other comments made about virtual reality, shall we, from Shuhei Yoshida. Now, of course, PlayStation VR is technically in competition with both the Rift and the Vive, but apparently Shuhei Yoshida doesn't see it that way, and basically, the way he sees it, Sony, Oculus and Valve are all pulling towards the same goal, even as their engineers battle for the best technology possible. And he spoke to The Verge saying, quote, "We're in this together to really help each other to get more people to be interested and excited and become fans of VR." And according to him, every VR believer has, quote, one specific moment when they converted to the tech, and all three major players in the virtual reality race want the same thing, to get people to have that wow moment. And he said, quote, "Every time any one of our three companies have events and gets lots of people to try, we are helping each other to get more people to try good VR. It doesn't have to start with PlayStation VR. Someone's first experience might be with the HTC Vive, and if that person gets excited about VR, that's great for all of us. That's how we see it." Because of the launch of the consumer versions of Oculus and HTC Vive, more and more people will try it, and that helps everyone. I'm very excited about having Oculus and Vive coming out in the next few weeks. That will help us. I'm serious. Is that surprising to hear? So, a little bit, yeah, given they're in direct competition with each other, but it is kind of a fair point. This is a brand new technology, and even if you can't afford the Vive or the Oculus, but you try it in a trade show or a convention or something like that, it gets you excited and interested in VR, and that might lead you to be like, hey, I've got PS4, PlayStation VR's in my budget, let me try that. So he does have a good point that they're all kind of helping each other. I would imagine as the virtual reality race gets more and more hot and competitive, he might not be so free with these type of comments, but while virtual reality is pretty much like a newly hatched chick at this point in terms of how much we know about it and how much we know, how well it's going to be accepted, that sort of thing, it's a fairly valid point of view. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this though, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.